What's up, everybody? This is Jack from Crypto 49er, bringing you my knowledge in cryptocurrency. Today I want to talk about Green Gekko. What is it, how to install it, and how to set up PostgreSQL because you need it. But before I talk about Green Gekko, just want to bring up several issues I was working on with the Gekko trading bot itself and why I end up looking at Green Gekko. Gekko has this issue specifically with Coinbase Pro, and it actually has been happening since, at least as early as July 31st. It's probably even earlier than that. This issue still exists on the latest version of Gekko. And as you can see here, it says that Gekko trade exit date 1970. So this just points out that you get a weird date when Gekko makes some trades for you actually, and it ends up having like a December 31st, 1969 or a January 1st, 1970 date. That the date itself a little bit annoying if you're trying to track your trades, but more importantly, Gekko doesn't actually make these trades for you. A lot of times, these are failed trades. This is not the only issue that's brought up here. There's several of them. Actually, there's another one here. So Gekko not retrying rejected trades, and that's basically what it is. These trades are rejected for specific reasons. I think a lot of people use Coinbase Pro with Gekko specifically because Coinbase Pro allowed you to put in limit orders, and limit orders are maker orders. Basically, you are a market maker. You are providing liquidity to the exchange. So Coinbase Pro, to reward you for that, they don't charge you any fees. The problem is Gekko, when it adds these trades, sometimes because the market moves so fast, when it adds the trade to the order book, let's say you're trying to do a buy order and the market is going down, that buy order that you put in is actually now in the sell section, basically because your buy order price is so high, it would basically be considered as a taker order because you're basically buying into the order book. So Gekko uses limit orders only. So when Coinbase Pro sees Gekko trying to make this kind of trade or put this kind of trade through, it would reject it. And that's where this particular issue comes in. As you can see here, Gekko not retrying rejected trades. When Gekko puts through this trade, the trade gets rejected, and Gekko doesn't retry the rejected trade, meaning your buy order or sell order stops. Basically, if you're trying to buy a certain price, it won't buy. And if you're trying to sell to get out of the market, it won't sell. So this is a pretty big problem. It doesn't happen all the time because the market doesn't always move that quickly. So that Gekko is putting in the trade at the wrong price because literally it's like seconds. So that's the problem I've been working on this whole week pretty much. Trying to find a way to get Gekko to retry the rejected trades. And actually, this is the ticket I'm working on at this moment, basically an active ticket. Again, the reason why you see so many of these closed tickets is because there's a stale bot set up by AxMike. So basically, any issue ticket that's been open for more than 2 months and no one's been commenting on it gets closed automatically. So I'll hopefully try to keep this one open and hopefully try to eventually fix this issue. But one of the things I was thinking of is if I can make a strategy that waits until we get that rejected trade order, right? So waits until it gets that notification that it got rejected, then it actually tries to trade again, then that will fix the problem, right? Essentially, that's one way to fix the problem. This is in programming terms a non-blocking function. So essentially, you're having this buy order. Let's say if you have a buy function here, that buy function is not complete until it gets that message from the exchange saying, "Oh, hey, this, we actually got a completed order, completed message. Then you can, complete it." I was looking into this and I see that there's actually other people that have been building and looking to build this feature into strategy. So one of these guys is Mark-SCH. So he's relatively active on the Gekko forums and Discord as well, the Gekko Discord channel. What I found was that back in September last year, he was putting in a bunch of commits to try to merge into Gekko. These commits will allow you to write asynchronous functions. So again, asynchronous is a way for you to have your strategies not block the main thread. It'll run on the side, and then it will actually, and they will come back to the main thread when a specific thing happens, like when the exchange responds back, or maybe a specific time has passed, then it comes back to the main thread. That's the idea with these asynchronous functions. So he has a bunch of these things in. So, but it looks like, based on what I see here, Axmike didn't quite agree with some of the ideas that Mock-SCH wanted to put into Gekko. So since Gekko is open source software, what Mock-SCH did is he built his own version of Gekko. He basically forked Axmike's version of Gekko, and he built his own version called Green Gekko. The main features in Green Gekko is that it's an interactive trade bot, and it uses Telegram. So what it is I mean, I already have Telegram set up with Gekko before. You've seen my past videos about that. So, but what this does, it looks so much nicer because first of all, like the commands are already in the bottom of the screen, so you can just tap on it instead of actually typing it out. That's really nice. Secondly, he has something called an administration mode. So on my other video I had in the past where I told you guys to lock down your Telegram bots that you have linked up to Gekko. Same reasons, because you don't want other people to be executing buy and sell orders for you. So here he built in an administration mode so that only you, the person with the password, can make buy and sell orders and even check your portfolio, because these things are private information to you, so no one else should be accessing it. But there are tons of other features besides that. I mean, he says right here, so there's extended trading strategy, the Heiken Ashy candles. Definitely look into that, guys. That I may even make a video about that in the future. But it's something that's it's a totally different candle system. Something to definitely look into. And then you can set trading amounts. Like my previous video, you can use specific portions of your portfolio. You don't have to use your whole entire portfolio for trading. So that's an awesome thing. Allow market making and market taking. So basically, your strategy, I would assume your strategy or the strategy that he has written, he has a few written already for Green Gekko, will let you choose between a limit order or a market order. So he has a lot of features already written in here. And the core enhancement he also mentioned is the async trading strategy. So again, this is the open issue that he had here where he wanted to merge into Gekko, but Axmike didn't quite agree with it. He has it here again, so you can write asynchronous trading strategies. So let's go ahead and show you guys how to install it. So first thing is just go right down to the bottom right here, and it's just getting started. If you follow the instructions, it's almost exactly the same as the default Gekko, but when I first tried to run it, this is what I got. Gekko encountered an error and can't continue, error, and it says econ refuse, and I'm like, what's going on here? So 1270.0.1, so it looks like it's a loopback address. So it's basically, if you guys run the Gekko UI version, you know that you're calling yourself, you're calling your own computer, you're trying to reference the server on your computer. So there's something here, like where and the thing is, I'm not running Green Gekko as UI mode, I'm just running it as an import mode, I think, at this point, but it wasn't working. So I was like, what's going on? So it turns out you need to have PostgreSQL installed. PostgreSQL is another way to store candle information for Gekko. So by default, Gekko uses SQLite. Very simple to use, very easy to set up. Basically, there's no setup involved. Problem with SQLite is that, and if you guys have tried to run multiple Gekkos from that same Gekko install, you probably have come across this issue where one Gekko instance is locking out the other Gekko instance, and you can't use both Gekkos from one Gekko install. So what you end up doing, and what I have done in the past, is to have multiple Gekko install and run it that way. With PostgreSQL, it's not supposed to lock you out, and it's supposed to let you basically run multiple Gekkos from one Gekko install. That's my understanding. I haven't tried it, but you do need it for Green Gekko. So this particular guide here is how to set up PostgreSQL for Mac OS X. If you guys need the Windows version, just Google it. You should find something similar. I believe the Mac and Linux version is basically the same, so this should work as well for Linux. So the first thing you do is to install PostgreSQL. For Mac, you're using Homebrew to have it installed, and basically you guys should be pretty familiar with terminal and how to use Homebrew at this point. It's very straightforward. So literally it's just brew install PostgreSQL. So that will get you PostgreSQL installed. And the second thing is to have PostgreSQL running and also starting up as a service every time you start your computer. The next thing is just to check to make sure that Postgres is installed properly. But after that, all you have to do is to set up a user, a specific user that has ability to create databases. And then here, there's two methods to do that. But just go with the easier version, which is the create user utility. And he covers it in here in A2. So basically just use create user and then type in the name of the user and basically give this user a create database role. So this user can create databases. But one thing about the user though, that user has to match whatever you have in the Green Gekko config file. So in the Green Gekko config file, in the config.postgresql section, in the connection string variable, it'll list the user and the password that you want the user to have. So you need to set up the user to have the same name as in the config file here, and make sure to set the password to match as well. So that's very key. You also have to set the local host as well. So it's all inside the create user utility. You can set all those things. Set the user, set the password, set the local host, and set the role that the user has. So once you've done all of that, you don't have to do the rest. You don't have to create a database or anything because Green Gekko does that for you. So once you have PostgreSQL running and the user set up, it should just work. But for me, when I tried to run it, it didn't work because this database GDAX does not exist. So in this case, what I was doing was at this point I was trying to run it live, and Gekko didn't actually create a database yet. So you have to run the import for it to work. So that's what I did on the next screen here, except that I didn't set up the config file properly. Mark SCH, he uses Kraken, so the default is Kraken, so I had to make sure I change it back to GDAX. From that point on, I was able to import. Same thing as you would with your traditional Gekko. Once I imported, I just ran it and it just worked. Things were working fine. I was able to communicate with it using Telegram. One of the good things about Green Gekko is that you don't have to install the Telegram plugin. It's already installed. When you run npm to install the necessary modules, it'll install Telegram by default. So that's one cool thing about Green Gekko. Obviously, at this point, I put in my Telegram bot key and all the stuff that's needed to get Green Gekko running. From this point on, I was just testing out what I can do, basically trying each of the functions available. All the functions work, more or less, until I got to the admin function, and that worked. And then I tried one of the other functions within the admin side, like portfolio, for example. When I clicked portfolio, nothing happened. And then I waited for like 6 minutes, and I'm just like, let me just see if price works. And I checked price, and at that point, price does work. So portfolio, for some reason, didn't work. So I went back to terminal to see if I could find any issues with it. So when I looked into terminal, I see that there's a polling error whenever I use portfolio. I think that's somehow related to portfolio not working. So I tried other stuff like issuing a buy order, and unfortunately, I got this issue, HTTP 400 insufficient funds, even though I know there's enough money in there. As you can see, there's $10 in here, so I'm just buying, Ethereum Classic, so there's enough for that, but then it says that I have insufficient fund. It just shows you that because Green Gekko is really just a nicer version of Gekko, it still shares some of the errors, and insufficient funds is basically one of those issues. If you go into trader.js, this is actually the Green Gekko version of trader.js. So this is where they set the amount to buy, and if you see right here, amount equal to, so set buy amount divided by this price. For traditional Gekko, it is times by 95% just because they needed to give it a little room in case the price shifts, and then it ended up not being able to buy because it considers your order a little larger than what you can buy. So that's basically the issue that both Gekko and Green Gekko has to deal with. But anyway, going back to terminal, you can see also here that it actually lists insufficient fund multiple times. So it's one of those things where even though Green Gekko, and I'm pretty sure regular Gekko, retries this insufficient funds trade, it's basically useless to retry it because every single time you'll get the same error over and over again. In fact, I think it's about 10 times because I know I looked into this. For insufficient funds, Gekko will retry 10 times. If this is a order calculation issue, that order is going to fail. So instead, what should really be done is that I think more likely on the strategy side of things, what you need to do is have a way to see that your order is not going through and have your strategy reissue another buy order. So basically, this buy order that's here gets canceled, and then the strategy itself will issue another buy order to try to continue to buy into the market. So what I did was I tried manually to get it buy again. As you can see here, the first time It actually tells you too. I really like that Green Gekko really tells you the specific errors that what you were seeing. In this case, trade error, and tells you the reason why. But I just tried it again, and this time it does go through. As you can see in Coinbase Pro, it actually does put in the buy order this time. So I'm pretty sure that the main issue is because Green Gekko is trying to maximize the buy order, and sometimes that doesn't go through, and that could be a problem, I guess, for some automated trades as well. If the buy order doesn't go through, you're missing out on a potential gain, right? On the terminal side here, you can see this pretty much is what happens to issue the buy order, and it just sits and waits until this buy order gets executed. So, but finally, it does get executed, and you can see that it does work. It says trade completed. It gives you all this information, the buy price, currency, the asset. There's definitely a lot to play with in here, I would think. And I really just scratched the surface in terms of using Green Gekko. I think one thing for me learning about just setting up PostgreSQL, it's really useful. I'll probably even use PostgreSQL on the regular Gekko. But for Green Gekko itself, the bottom line is this. It's a fork of Gekko that has a lot of nice features, but not all of them are working exactly as described. So just like any other open software, including the original Gekko, you do need to have some patience and be able to adjust it, tune it, and just understand what's going on in the background to really address some of the issues and be able to work around it or use it properly. So that's my video for today, guys. Just a couple of things. So first of all, I'm on Patreon. If you guys want to support my channel, definitely go to patreon.com/crypto49er and become a patron. So I make a post once a month on Patreon regarding different strategies that I have to try to make a profit in this nuclear winter crypto market. I'm coming up with some ideas already for the January article. Definitely look out for that. And again, only the patrons will get those articles. Secondly, I want to give a shout out to Most Raz and Wise Raging for becoming my newest patrons. Thank you very much to both. The next thing I just want to point out is that it's 2019 and tax season is coming up if you haven't thought about it yet. I have a friend that recommended me a tax accountant that's really specifically does cryptocurrency related taxes. So this is his webpage. If you guys have any questions, do definitely check him out and basically get your crypto taxes in order because hey, I mean, unless you don't live in the United States, you do have to pay the United States for taxes. So anyway, guys, that's my video for today. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Like and subscribe. If it isn't crypto, it isn't worth mining. It isn't worth speculating. Peace out.